Thanks again for tuning in to Sin's Workshop. Hope you are all having a wonderful day. So, today we're going to be talking about The Silence That Binds Us by Joanna Ho. I'm going to try very, very hard not to go off on tangents here because this book, it made me feel a lot. Not just happiness, but also like lots of anger in a good way. And lots of sadness, again, in a good way. This is a socially charged and emotionally charged novel. It follows May Chen, and she goes by May. And the story begins with her remembering the last day her brother was alive before he committed suicide. You already know that his suicide plays a heavy part in the story because it's in the synopsis of the book. You know, that back cover blurb, it's mentioned there. So you're along this journey with May as she's remembering her brother and how she's wishing she had gone with him to this party, how she had been there with him, the shoulder that he needed, the strength that he needed, because he was always the strength she needed because she never felt good enough for her mother. You know, she's not the Chinese, Taiwanese daughter her mother wished for. But I do think it really is thought-provoking. It's really emotional. And I really do love Ho's style of writing because right in the beginning, you know, these are just a few chapters that you're getting to know the relationship between Danny and May. And you see the love that they have for one another. But you're also seeing like these subtle hints of his depression that May was unaware of before. You know, he kept his depression so close to himself. He felt like he had to be the pillar of strength for May. You know, he was the glue of the family. He was the peacekeeper almost, you know, the golden child. And he was accepted to Princeton. You know, he had everything going for him. But, you know, depression isn't just, as someone who has suffered from depression and occasionally does, you know, it never goes away. It's more than just about having a bad day. And it's different for a lot of people. Depression is different for everyone. There is no box that you can put someone who suffers depression in, you know, because it affects everyone differently. It affects everyone at different strengths. But I like Ho's style of writing because you see how respectful she is of this topic. Because throughout the story, May is remembering instances with her brother, you know, fun instances that show these small telltale signs. She's like, was this a sign of your depression? You know, her questioning every little small thing, you know, what could I have done better? And it's not about what could she have done better, because depression is very much, for most people, I can't speak for all, it very much is an internal feeling of loneliness, I guess, in my experience, you know, and not just loneliness, but just not feeling good enough despite everyone praising you and loving you, and, you know, it's just not feeling good enough for yourself, you know. Like I said, I can't really, it's different for everyone. It affects everyone differently. But I did feel a connection with Ho because I really did think her writing was compelling. And it was emotional to see that relationship play out between the two of them. But in the wake of his suicide, you know, she goes back to school the next school year. And the school is just like, we have sources for you. And then some Mr. McIntyre gets up. He's like, well, why should the peer pressure isn't because of the schoolwork. It's because of the Asians. You know, they're making everything too competitive. Why should my son have to suffer? Blah, blah, blah. Because some boy killed himself. He was accepted into Princeton. What, wasn't that good enough for his family? That's literally what happens in that scene. And it just made me angry. I was with me. I was like, who the hell does this guy think he is? And he doesn't even think he's racist. He's like, oh yeah, I have Asian friends. It's like, do you not see? You're putting them in a box and you're stereotyping them. And feeding those stereotypes is, I mean, it's racist. There's no other way to say it. It's racist, you know. Stereotypes are called stereotypes for a reason. And he knows nothing of May or her family, and he knows nothing. They were so happy. Not that that makes a difference, but they were so happy he got accepted into Princeton. He wanted to go to Stanford. But they were so happy for him. They were so proud of their son. It's not about the pressure, you know. It's about he was taking their trauma to fit his narrative. That's what he was doing. And I think a lot of people in the media do that now. You know, they're taking someone else's trauma and they are flipping it to fit their narrative. I could go off on a lot of tangents on this topic. I am choosing not to, because this isn't about that, it's about the book. But that's what the comment section is for, so have at it. I like May's developmental growth. You know, her best friend's Haitian, and she's like unaware half the time of what happens to African Americans. You know, like there's an instance in this book they're talking about how they're going to go to a march, peaceful protest, a march, because a 10-year-old boy, 10-year-old black kid was shot in a convenience store because they thought he was shoplifting. No, he was not shoplifting. But when they were telling May this and telling her, oh yeah, you should come with us to the walk, she's like, first words out of her mouth are, well, what did he do? He was a 10-year-old kid. And I like how they call her out in her bullshit. You know, it's just like, you have white privilege. I am a Latina woman, but I am not, you know, I am aware of my light-skinned privilege. I tell people I'm Mexican, they don't know. Yeah, I'm Mexican, and I'm proud. And I'm 100% Mexican. But you wouldn't, many people don't know it by looking at me. But May is unaware of her light skin privilege, and her friends call her out on that. And I like that her friends call her out on it. There's a lot of growth in her characterization, a lot of awakening. And you know, I love Ho's storytelling. There's a history lesson in this book as well. And I'm like, shit, I didn't know that. Why was that not taught in school? Right. Because of the narrative. Who's writing those textbooks? What's happening? Why is erasure happening here when it comes to our country? Just because it's ugly, you don't want to look at it? No, that's even more reason to look at it. Because if you don't look at it and acknowledge, hey, trauma happened and you are part of the problem, it's going to keep repeating. And that's what this book is about. The silence that binds them. May's family, it just keeps telling her, keep your head down because what you're doing is affecting us. It's just like, but it's not right. Does being silent make the problem go away? No, it doesn't. And that's what May is coming to realize. And that's what her family is coming to realize too. Like, you know, you're probably going to cost me my job, but what does that say about the company I work for? I'm a highly intelligent person. I can go out and get another job with a company that respects me. You know, that's the awakening her family has in regards to her actions. There's a whole awakening in this book about social commentary and racism and mental illness as well. I'm trying not to go off on tangents. It's really hard to rein me in here. It's a wonderful book. It's thought-provoking. All I can say is I have to give it a 5 out of 5. It is really absolutely compelling. I can't recommend it enough. I think everyone should read it. It just makes you think. It really does. And there's history lessons in here, things that I was unaware of because they weren't taught in school. I had to learn from my mother, like, oh yeah, in the 1920s, there was a mass deportation of Hispanics to Mexico, whether or not they were Hispanic or not. Why? You know, they thought they were taking jobs away from good old Americans. My family was part of those, and they were legal. Native American, you know? My great-great-grandmother was Native American. And she was deported to Mexico. What's that about? I didn't know about that. And you also learn about Asian culture in this book and how they're all different and how people tend to put all Asians together in a box. History is important. Even the ugly parts, especially the ugly parts. And, you know, I love that Ho was able to incorporate that in the story. So I'm going to stop there. I went off on a tangent. I'm sorry. This book made me feel things a lot. It made me think about a lot of things, which is important. If a book makes you think and if a book makes you feel, I think that's really incredibly important for the narrative. Yeah, 5 out of 5 stars. If you want to go ahead and purchase, I will include links in the description below on where to purchase the book. And on that note, I hope you all continue to support me here by liking this video, subscribing to my channel, and sharing it with all your book-loving friends. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Sorry the video was so long. And as always, happy reading, everyone.